Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another episode of Boards and Brews. And again, we have original Don here with us. So we're just going to dive right in with our rapid fire question. What is your brewed beverage today, Don?
So I have come with a Maui Brewing Company Bikini Blonde Lager. Quite good. It's refreshing. Says so on
And
the can.
it says it's refreshing on the can.
It does.
Well, that's good. It takes the work out of it for you. You don't even have to
That's
think
right.
about how you feel. And I have from Fort Point the Esfizio Italian style Pilsner, which is pretty good. It's pretty light and pretty crisp. I think I'll probably buy it again and mix it up with my other favorites. We had a massively long episode last time because I hadn't done one in a while. I had lots of stuff to cover. Back more along the lines of what we normally do. This episode where we'll talk about just a few games we've been playing, have coming up, and then we're gonna jump into our topic of best and worst crowdfunding campaigns we've been involved with, and then we're going to talk about our review games today, which is actually a trio centered around Three Sisters and then the other Motor City Roll and Rights. But Don's going to tell you all about this. I'm not even going to spoil what the other two are later on. All right, Don, we're going to start with you though. What have you been playing recently? One of them, that is.
Yeah. I picked a couple of things I played recently. I just got a chance to play War of the Ring, which is not something I was seeking out, but I was always curious about it because so many people talk about it. It's multiple people's favorite game of all time. They'll talk about it in the same breath as Star Wars Rebellion as being this amazing thematic, immersive two-player experience, and
Oh,
I
is it
really
only two
enjoyed
player? I
it.
thought it was. It could be more than one. It's just one person is Mordor and one person is Fellowship.
Yeah, I think it might have a team variant like Star Wars Rebellion has, but they're both clearly designed to be two-player games, and I can't imagine wanting to play it in a different mode. Um, yeah, it's one player plays Mordor, one player plays the Fellowship. I thought it was really cool. It's definitely as thematic and immersive as everybody says. It really brings kind of the stories into the game. Just like Star Wars Rebellion, you can diverge from where the stories go, of course. Um, Except that it does have to be Sam and Frodo that take the ring to Mount Doom and
Spoiler.
throw it in. Uh, so it was great. I think I would still play Star Wars Rebellion over War of the Ring, but I'm
What do you
also
what do you do like
what
in
do
the
you
game?
do? Yeah, so it depends on who you're playing, of course. If
Who
you're
are
playing
you? I'm
Mordor,
assuming you were evil.
I played the Fellowship actually.
What?
Yeah. Um, there's a neat mechanism around the Fellowship. Actually, there's a little box on the board, and you put all the minis of the companions in there, and then the Fellowship is just represented by the Frodo Sam mini that you move around the board. And but then you can also, on your turn, have members of the Fellowship break off and go out on their own to do things, and then they come out of that little box and they go out on the actual map on the board. And so if you're the Fellowship, you're trying to, gradually move the Fellowship to mountain and get the ring into Mount Doom. Spoiler, I did not get close to that, so I did not experience the final effort of getting up the mountain. But that's basically your goal there. If you're Mordor, you are, of course, trying to stop them. You win if the ring corrupts Frodo. So there's a little track that tracks corruption, and Frodo can be corrupted by various effects.
Well, then you
Um,
just give it to Sam, and Sam is
yes,
uncorruptible. Game over.
right. Yeah, he carries Frodo up the mountain and so on. Um, there's also a territory control victory for each side. If Mordor takes over enough of the lands of the elves and the humans and the hobbits and all of that, they win. The Fellowship can conquer enough of Mordor's territory to win. Uh, they actually have like half the points they have to get from territory control, but it's harder to do. So it's kind of neat that there's those extra ways to win, and that is how Mordor won in this game. I did get to kind of almost to Mount Doom, and then lost on a territory control um, victory. But it's kind of nice that that's there because I think this game would be a slog if it was only one or the other. corruption or melting the ring.
And did you play this with the same person you played Rebellion with the other day, or?
I did actually, yeah.
And so
And I think
what was their thought? Like, how did they compare the 2? You've already spoiled it by saying you like Rebellion better.
they had the same opinion. I think we both felt like Rebellion was a slightly more interesting experience. I'll say I'm much more of a Star Wars person than a Lord of the Rings person, and I think he's probably the same. He's not quite as old as me. You know, I was born at exactly the right time for Star Wars. I was 3 years old when it first came out, so it's been there my entire life. I
So
mean, obviously, it's been there his entire life, but
how many of the originals did you see in the theater, like, on first release? I mean,
I
clearly not the
saw
first one because you were 3.
I remember seeing it in the drive-in. I think that was probably on the re-release in, like, '79, they re-released the movie. I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theater. I did not see Return of the Jedi in the theater. My parents just never got around to taking us. So,
Wow. They
I
did not
remember
get Parent of the Year trophies that year.
yeah. It was quite a an effort to do that because we were living in the mountains at the time, and so it meant, like, driving 2 hours down the mountain into the city to go to the movies.
W
Um,
were you
so
on Mount Sinai? Like, where were you? Like,
this is
2
just in the
hours.
Sierras in California. It takes a couple hours to get down to the city. So, we just never got around to it. I actually read the novelization while it was still in the theater, so I knew the story, and then a while later, like a long time later, I saw the actual movie.
So you were, like, really cool back then reading the movie novelizations.
I never really would have put it that way, no. It
I
felt a
read a
little
couple
second
I
class.
when I was in school, I read a couple movie novelizations, and man, I got made so much fun of for it. Like, I can't imagine it was more accepting 10 years earlier, you know?
No, no. But, you know, all my friends lived in the mountains too, so it was just as hard for them to go see the movie. So, anyway, that was my youth growing up with Star Wars, and so I have a little more connection to that. I've never really loved the Lord of the Rings novels, not that I've read them all. I read the first one and it was a slog, and I never
For shame.
opened the second. Yeah, I'm not a very good geek.
No.
I love the world, I love the story. This game was very enjoyable. The characters are great, they're well represented in the game, and, it's a close one, but I would pick Rebellion.
How long did the game take? Do you remember?
Couple hours.
Couple hours? Yeah,
There was a moment 45 minutes in where we thought that I won, because I was in a space in Mordor and was taking it over, and it was enough territory points to win the game, and then we realized that the faction that I'd taken in there wasn't technically at war, so they weren't allowed to cross the border. That's one of the weird mechanics, like, you can't cross into other nations if you're not at war, and you have to
cool.
go around and
Yeah,
convince the other nations to go to war.
that's fair. You know, you
Yeah,
gotta someone has to be civilized.
yeah, but we were bewildered. We're like, "This game is supposed to be really long, and it's been 45 minutes, and it's over," and then we figured it out.
Alright, so my first one is I'm gonna actually start with the second one on the list so we can have a little back-to-back hot roll and right action here. And my first one is a Kickstarter that, well, we both backed, and you were kind enough to print the first 5 of them for me because my printer doesn't print red right now. And that is Dungeon Pages. And this was a recent Kickstarter. You can get it on print and play RPG site now. It's a little more expensive, like 20 bucks now. But this is a dungeon crawl, roll and write. And so every week we're getting a complete new PDF that has a new character and a new little adventure. And each adventure is just one A4 page. And the top has your character and their little health markers and their abilities, their items that they can get. And the bottom, there will be 4 or 5 little grid spaces which represent each dungeon. When you pick a dungeon, you go into it, and each round, you take however many evil dice there are. It varies by dungeon, and however many good dice you have, which depends on how much experience you have. You roll the dice, and you put a number into a grid on the board. And where you can place that number depends on what kind of weapon you have. You start out, you can place one square away orthogonally, and you place the numbers out, and you're slowly moving through the dungeon trying to get to the treasure and fight the monsters that are in there. However, and this is where the game really punches you in the brain, is you have to, if you want to get the rewards you want to get the experience, and you have to have the experience to get new weapons and the relics and all that, you have to go through the dungeon that calls it sequentially, which means every square that's next to another square orthogonally adjacent must be within one of the previous number. So you could have a two, then a three, then a two, then a one, then a two, then a three, then a four, but all within one. If you don't get through the whole dungeon that way, you get nothing. No experience. You don't advance. You do get to pick anything you pick up. You pick up potions and stuff as you go through, but you don't get experience with the monsters that you killed. None of it. And at the same time, you have your health. And when you roll all the dice, you're looking at the evil dice, and every evil die that reaches whatever the threshold is for the particular monsters in that dungeon, if you're at or over that threshold, every single one of the monsters is still alive. They will activate and they will hurt you. When you're trying to get through all the dungeons, once you through all the small dungeons, you get to do the big boss dungeon. Try to get out without dying. And you're gonna die. Like a lot. I just played a game before we started, and I didn't even get out of the second dungeon before I died. And so it's very challenging, and it's particularly challenging because of the sequential thing. Like you don't even get even for stuff you kill, you magically don't get experience for. So it's very very challenging. That said, it's very quick. I play a full game where I get to the final dungeon in about 8 minutes. It's super quick. I really do like that each of the different dungeons, the characters are completely different with the abilities that they have, and they're all kind of overpowered in their own way. All the dungeons have different traps. Like all of that's really, really cool. And I actually really dig it, except for one thing. There's one thing that gets my goat, and that's that sequential thing. Because the best I've done, I almost got out of the big dungeon, was I was going through and I never unlocked anything because I couldn't get the sequential thing. So I'm just like running through this dungeon, just trying to get out as fast as I can to get to the next one. And the problem with it is because this is a dice game, you're completely at the mercy of what you roll that first time.
Hmm.
Because sometimes you're rolling 3 dice in a dungeon and you have 2 spaces next to the first door. Well, great. So if I roll a 2 and a 6 and a 4, well, now I've lost my sequential on my very first roll. And that's frustrating. That's it. It's an 8-minute game. And I've now played it like 12 times in 3 days. So I don't know.
Your money's
But
worth.
yeah, I mean, it's worth the $10 that I paid for it for sure. I'm going to keep playing it. I absolutely recommend taking it, and I put it in little, I sleeved my papers, is what I did. I sleeved my papers, people, so I can dry erase on. I'm really glad I did because I definitely want to actually beat all of them at some point, and I'd be wasting so much. Well, I guess of your paper, I guess I'd be wasting so much of your paper, Don, to do it. But I dig it. It's totally worth the $10. I think it's like $20 now if you want, the weekly thing. I think it's probably worth
Mhm.
that. Like, I'm definitely gonna get 30, 40 games out of this for sure. I don't know if I'll actually play all 52, but I'll do a lot of them. But anyhow, I know you have it too. Have you tried it yet?
I have not.
Oh my
I
god.
confess. I keep putting
I
it on the
told you like
table,
45
sitting
minutes ago
down.
we were talking about this. You could have played like 12 games.
I was busy driving home from work. So, no, I haven't yet, and this is, one of the things that weighs on me. Like, it's really cool that you're getting a new sheet every week, but I have not started it yet, which means I'm 5 or 6 sheets behind.
It's
I mean, it
embarrassing.
sounds like
Well,
I'm maybe half an hour behind, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, all the
it
times
weighs
I've
on me.
played, I've played 3 of the 5 heroes that we have.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm itching to get it started, and I think I will. It sounds like the sequential thing is a little bit of a drag, but not so
yeah, and
bad that
I
it
I
makes
I
it
posted a
unenjoyable.
question on the Kickstarter just to make sure, like, maybe I'm missing something. I don't think I am. I think that's just what it is. Like, it's meant to be hard, and it might just be because if you're going through and you are just getting experience, it becomes easy. Oh, the other thing that's actually is very interesting with the sequential thing is for every column you completely fill with numbers, you get 1 extra experience point.
Hmm.
So, but of course, that's way harder because you got to fill
Yeah.
the whole grid.
Now you're
Um,
going sequential and up and down the map.
yep, and it's got a the stuff that you can pick up and find is very clever. Like to pick up a key that you find on the board. You have to have the same number on two sides of it. Pick up coins, which coins let you adjust your dice. All those things just have two numbers on, like a four on to the north and to the south. You'll pick it up. You just circle it. You can use it. It's, I mean, it's all very clever. I just don't know if I will get frustrated before I get better at the
Mhm.
game with the sequential thing, if that makes sense.
And it's a one sheet experience for that character, right? Like you're not taking that experience to another page.
Yeah, yeah, it's one per. You can mix and match, like you can take one character and play it in
Oh,
another
interesting.
dungeon. There's no reason you can't do that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean it's neat. Like I literally, I got home and I was like, oh well, I got like 10 minutes. Sure, I'll play one. And in 3 minutes, I was dead. So it was
Okay.
good. I did
I
particularly
will
poorly.
try
I
to get
didn't.
this
Yeah,
played tonight. I'm intrigued.
I'm surprised you didn't play an entire game while I was talking about it. Like you could have played like two games while I was explaining that. Oh,
Maybe I did, and I'm just being polite.
ooh, that's deep. Yeah, it's neat. I like it. I'm glad I backed it. I'm probably gonna play it again as soon as we're done talking, as I'm just now convinced I will finally win. So that's my red hot roll and write. What is your red hot roll and write that you have to talk about that you've been playing lately?
Yeah, so I was on a trip to Houston like 3 weeks ago, and I always like to pop into a game store if I can when I'm on a trip. And there's a very cool one there called the Dragon's Lair, I think it is. And if I can buy something that I can fit into
Were
my
there
luggage to
dragons?
take home, I get it. There are dragons, yeah,
Did they
not
have a
real
copy of
ones,
Flamecraft?
sadly. I did not see Flamecraft. No,
Well, then it sounds like a sham.
that does sound like a sham. So anyway, while I was there, I picked up Super Skill Pinball Star Trek. I think technically it's Star Trek Super Skill Pinball.
Say that one
So
three
there's
times fast.
yeah. So there's an original Super Skill Pinball that came out, I don't know, a year earlier, and I was taught that at Dice Tower West last year, and it was really interesting and fun. It's a neat little challenge. You're moving these little, dome-shaped pinball balls, whatever you call them, um, around a pinball board, and they, of course, constantly have to be going down the sheet. It's a roll and write, and so you're going down and you're hitting bumpers and stuff, and you're marking them and you're scoring points based on those. And if you can't hit a number that's on a flipper, then the ball falls through and you move on to your next ball, just like pinball, right? But you're trying to keep it going and trying to get it bouncing off the bumper as you are, subject to the dice rolls, of course. But it's really interesting, and I actually hate pinball in real life. It's like dexterity is not a thing for me, and so a game where
I
you
mean,
have to
you're
be
just
quick
pushing
and
a button, right?
I don't get it. Like, I d there are people that are obsessed with pinball, and I have never been able to enjoy a game of pinball, but I enjoy this game.
If you're just
Yes.
listening, I've been doing a pinball, pushing the
I was playing
buttons.
pinball because 'cause I'm just so dull.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
so Skippy, designer of Lunar Rush, actually has a
mhm,
pinball machine. When I used to go visit him, I mean, I used to like he's dead or something. No, I mean, there's a like a pinball museum or something that we'd go over to. I think that
mhm,
was there. I don't know. So, but just dude loves his pinball, which I just find, which is
yeah,
probably why you can't win Lunar Rush.
probably.
It has
It's
all
it's
come together.
secretly a pinball game. So, anyway, there is now a Star Trek version, and I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I may even be more of a Star Trek fan than a Star Wars fan. Um, it's never a competition, but I love Star Trek,
Well,
and
a
this
big
one
portion of the nerdverse just went.
because I refuse to make it a competition.
Well, no,
Yeah,
because you said you liked one over the other.
yeah, that's true, and the other portion's cheering. So, anyway, it has 4 different Star Trek boards in them. There's a Starfleet Academy, Bubble with Tribbles, what is the cartoon called?
Lower decks, right?
Lower Decks, Star Trek Lower Decks, and the Borg Invasion. So those are the 4 themes. I've only played the Starfleet Academy one so far, but it's the same type of game. You're moving the ball around based on die rolls, but it is super thematic. It's got all these little Easter eggs in there, references to Star Trek. There's a track on that board you go up that is the Kobayashi Maru, which is the Starfleet Academy test that's impossible to
Everybody
win.
knows.
Yeah.
Can
And
you
the
cheat
great
it?
thing is, like so the great thing is the last spot on that board, which gets you, like, on that track that gets you, like, 50 points, it requires a die roll that you cannot get. But there is another combo that you can get that lets you move up on that track for free, so you can cheat to beat the Kobayashi Maru. So it's awesome. I really loved it. I'm itching to try Trouble with Tribbles and Lower Decks and Borg, of course. Yeah, so it was great. It's a little more like generic Star Trek bits in there because it's the Academy. You can kind of put a little bit of everything. So I liked it. It'd be great to see another rendition with even more. I mean, there's so much content in the Star Trek universe that you could throw in there. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
great. It's a lot of
there's a
fun.
whole bunch of versions of that game, isn't there?
This is just the second.
Oh, really?
There's
Oh,
basic pinball and Star Trek pinball.
oh, I think they released just more boards or whatever for the basic pinball. I think
Mm,
something like.
okay.
All right, yeah. So I haven't played it. I know everyone thinks it's great. I just
Mhm.
haven't. I haven't even seen anybody who has it, but I guess you have it, so I guess yeah, I'll come play that while you play Dungeon Pages.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it'll be
And this is designed by Jeff Engelstein,
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. So it's
yeah,
a really
yeah,
clever design.
yeah. He's kind of big time.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, he didn't design Backyard Chicken, so he's got nothing.
Not everybody can.
It's true. All right, so my next one. Actually, before I talk about my last one, I do want to just get an honorable mention here because I just got my copy yesterday, and we actually played it together last weekend. And that is the game that I've been waiting a bazillion years for, and that is Theurgy,
Mm.
which everybody you've heard me talk. If you, I've talked about this game ad nauseum. I played the prototype over 20 times, and now in board game Hobbyland, playing a game 20 times is huge.
It's
And
really overdoing it.
yeah, now I'm just bragging, right? Um, so so Theurgy it arrived. So me and Don we played through an AI. I thought we had a good time. It took us, even with having to relearn a little bit, an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. Just really quick. I still love the game. I'm sure Don doesn't like it as much as I do, but the art is amazing on it now. And it's got a little bit of a oddity on some of the production. The deluxe meeples, some of them you can't see kind of the engraving perfectly, and the trays don't fit perfectly. Well, no, I guess they do. The trays that you can store stuff in do fit perfectly in the box if you put them perfectly in the box, if that makes sense.
I managed it one time, and then I tried 20 other times and couldn't do it. I finally
I
just took
wish
them apart.
I could tell you how much rage I could feel coming from Don through our little group chat we have Peter Vaughn that he said, I'm going on BGG. No one can tell me. I'm starting a thread. Like, you know what kind of rage you have to start a thread on BGG? Like that's something.
It's something for me. There are
Yes.
plenty of people who will do it at the drop of a hat,
I hope
but
someone started a thread about us already.
I never
Um,
like to speak ill, and it's just like, I'm looking for help is all.
yeah, and so, but I think you are still on my side of this is a good game.
It's a very good game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so I bring it up only because of this, and I'm actually going to make another video because I just got my copy. I love this game. On pretty much everyone that I bring it, introduce it to, they like the game a lot. They've added a lot to it. It looks great. They got crushed by pandemic shipping,
mhm.
just crushed. And so, down in the description of however you're watching or listening to this, there will be an email. If you would like to get a copy, email that email and just, say that you're interested and they will find a way to get you a copy because it's great. You should have it. Area control game that you can play in an hour with up to 5 people. Just can't beat that. Anyhow, what I've actually been playing lately, and it has been on my table all week, and Canadian Kev is here, and we've been playing it, and that is Tanares Adventures, which is a 20-pound expansion for Arena the Contest, which is, I don't know, 40 pounds a game already. Though I've gotten rid of a lot of it. And so the original Arena the Contest was this mostly PvP arena game, which is neat, fine. And then it had a solo mode, solo co-op mode they put on, which everyone kind of thought was going to be tacked on. It didn't back the game, so it's going to be tacked on. No, it was really good. Like it was a really good solo, but the game itself was simple, which is great for an arena combat thing. I think you have lots of characters do different things, but very simple. So Tanares Adventures is this 80+ hour campaign that you can play, and as it's replayable in the sense that every single game you do, you're making a choice of which of these two or three adventures am I going on, and the ones that you don't go on, at least so far, are going to be out of the game and will have some kind of negative impact because you didn't take care of this thing, you took care of something else. So very replayable. But what they've done is they've added a whole bunch of different additional abilities for every character, the way an ability for each different character class to kind of upgrade throughout the game. You're able to, they've added a skill system. This is what's very cool to me because if you play a lot of these party based dungeon crawl adventures, if they're more, if you're starting to do something a little bit complicated and you're really trying to figure stuff out, sometimes you're just sitting there waiting for the other players. But what they've
Mm.
done is they've created this skill system that you can use these skills but only on another player's turn to help them, or only on the bad guy's turn to do something to kind of interrupt what they're doing. And each game, you're picking which ones of these abilities that you're going to use. Very very clever and a little more complexity. It's a D20 system, so it can feel a little swingy because D20s always feel swingy, even though usually to hit you need a 6 or a 7. So I don't know how the math works on that, but it can feel a little bit swingy, but what they do something that I love, and a lot of dungeon crawls do this. And I know Don, you don't play a ton of dungeon crawls, but watch for ones that do this because it's good. You always get something even when you miss.
Mm.
So you can miss, and they call it residual damage. So it means you slipped and you didn't hit them very hard. So even when you miss, you still hurt them. So the game's always progressing forward. And same thing with the bad guys. They can miss, but they will still hurt you. So the game keeps progressing. You just don't get to do your special ability or whatever. Very cool. And we're just now experiencing there's in between each adventure, there's a city phase, which I know Frosthaven now does too, which people are all about. But in the city phase, you're choosing how you're going to you have a deck of cards of people that like work with you, and you draw these cards, and now it's a deck builder type thing. You're spending the resources on the cards, you're comboing them, playing cards on someone else's turn so they can have more strength or whatever, which you're using to either buy more cards, which are going to come into your hand so you have better hands, and also some of them will come with you on the adventure to give you boosts, but you're also using that to upgrade the town. You're also, and then by upgrading the town you can buy more weapons, and we've all played that kind of game, but it's really fast, it seems like. So that was a lot of me talking about a game that you haven't played and a lot of people still haven't even gotten. Like I'm still waiting for my second box of stuff. So that, side note, and people are getting all bent out of shape out of this. So Gamerati, who's shipping out in America, shipped out everybody's copy of Tanares Adventures first. That's the big 20-pound expansion. And then they're shipping out all the other stuff. So that's like the Kickstarter expansions and stuff. But more importantly, for a lot of people, the core game, which you have to have to play Tanares Adventures. So some people got this 20-pound huge expansion box with all the story and excitement. Oh, yeah, you're gonna have to wait a month and a half for us to ship the rest of it, or however long it's taking. And people are just all up in Jagori Games' grill about it. They're like, we're not shipping it. Like, we can't. They're gonna do it how they're gonna do it. So
You know how many people were just getting the expansion versus people who needed to add the core game?
I don't know what I my understanding is that the way they were packaged, pretty much they could just take the Tanaris Adventures expansion and just slap a label, go. The others they
Okay.
have to pull and separate and create new boxes because what are people getting? Like I'm just getting the um, Kickstarter expansion, and then I'm getting the upgraded minis. So they're the minis from the first one. They're like meh, they're fine, but the ones from the new game are better. So they redid the old ones. So I got to wait
Okay.
for that to show up. But yeah, I don't know, but you know how we nerds get. People are
for sure.
people are getting
Es-
feisty about it. Um,
Especially nerd crowdfunding backers.
oh, we're the worst. We are the
Yes.
I just today, no, yesterday. And I tried to say it in a way that seemed kind of fun. Like I'm not mad. I'm just like, what's up?
Hmm.
So, Don, I told you this. I sent you a picture, and so I've been waiting for the Warp Gate Beyond. It's basically a major upgrade to the solo mode of the game Warp Gate and a bunch of upgrades, and I'm excited about it. And I got the shipping notice. It was supposed to be delivered like on February 2nd or something like that. And for everybody here, it's February 9th right now when we're recording. And so I had looked at the tracking on February 2nd, it was in Kansas. It wasn't here. I'm like, whatever. That always happens. It's FedEx. So then it finally gets to Sacramento. I'm like, oh, good. And they get the updated notice. It'll be here tomorrow. And I check that afternoon at school. It's in San Jose. I'm like, good. Didn't get it. I check later that night. It's back in Sacramento. And it updates. It's going to be at my house the next day. I'm like, great. I check in the morning. It's in San Jose. Hooray. That afternoon, it's back in Sacramento. 4 times it went up and down. And then finally today, I got something that said that basically the barcode was damaged and they had to relabel it or something. So now I know what happened. But I posted on the thing. I said, "Yeah, my thing's gone up and down several times, Sacramento and San Jose. So clearly I'm stuck in some kind of sci-fi time loop. So clearly I've already played this in the past and I really enjoyed it. So I hope everyone else liked it. Like what? Well, apparently it didn't translate because the designer or the publisher came on. And was like, "We're gonna check on your shipment right away." I was like, "I didn't.
Oh,
I was trying to
did
be
not
funny
mean to
and I'm
create
not."
work for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to be funny and I failed.
You were even in the vicinity of Groundhog Day,
I
talking about a
know.
time loop. It
Yep.
was a brilliant, very meta joke.
Yep. And I failed. So, but anyhow, that has nothing to do with Tanares Adventure. Point is, so far we're really enjoying it. I'm excited for some of the
Good.
new characters. Oh, this is the other really cool thing about the city mode. So one of the things I always get into get my knickers in a bunch about when I'm playing Dungeon Crawls with all these characters, like I'm not going to play the whole campaign 12 times. Like I want to switch them out every so often without feeling like I'm messing something up. So as you're building that deck of cards you're using to upgrade your town, you can get the heroes as well, and they're particularly powerful. You have to go to the Of course, you go to the tavern to get the heroes,
Where else would they be?
and yeah, and it's set up to when
Training
you
or something?
what's that?
I said, where else would they be? Training or something?
No, God no, they're training
Or
by drinking.
drinking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but as you get more of them, you can get them in your deck. But then if you have them in your deck, you can then just use them instead. So take them with you, which I love that idea, and also it lends credence to the idea of well, then if your hero dies, it's gone type thing, and
Mm.
without game ending. So I'm very very excited about this. So I'm very excited about it. It's a lot. It's so much stuff. I'm trying to parse my way through it, but so far really really digging it. Clearly you haven't played it, so
Clearly.
yeah,
I'm glad it got to you finally, though.
yeah. It was a 3 year wait.
Mm.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I remember they did a reprint, I think, of the core game or something like that, and they had said that that was going to be out first, and they had said nope, it's going to be out like 8 months before the other one or something like that, and then that was super delayed, and I think they were somewhat ready for the other one. And they said, well, we promised 8 months, so it's going to be 8 months, and so that just like pushed everything. Like whatever. I had plenty of games to play, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to have this for another year. All right, fine, whatever. All right. So what do you got on your table for next, Don? Because people are tired of hearing me.
Yeah, so just briefly, not technically on the table, but the next big game coming up is Artisans of Splendent Vale or Artisans of the Splendent Vale. I can't recall if there's a "the" in there, but, anyway, it's this gorgeous, gorgeous story-based, campaign game. I've been itching to play it with my kids. It arrived a few weeks ago. Actually got it all set up a couple of weeks ago, and then, one kid couldn't come to the table. I'll say couldn't instead of wouldn't. And
It's
these
very
are
Julius Caesar, as Julius Caesar to tell the senators, "I will not come today." Cannot
there
is
you go.
false, dare not is false, or tell them I will not come. Yeah.
Will's an actor, if you can't tell. So yeah, I would not know those words from Julius Caesar.
Wow,
Anyway,
that was a deep cut, man. There's like 2 people who are
I
like,
believe it.
"Yeah, yeah, that is
I'm
act
happy for
2,
them.
scene 1."
So anyway, this is a gorgeous game. It's a beautiful, beautiful production. It's by Nikki Valent, I think is the right name.
Yeah.
I'm itching to play. It has really interesting characters. Each character is a different type of artisan, and they have a whole backstory. Kind of the truly unique thing about this game, at least I've never seen this before, is each player has their own book, and this is like a thick novel. And you all have most of the story in front of you. So, you can pick a narrator who's reading aloud, but then everybody else is following along. And then every once in a while, it'll say, so and so has something to say. And then only that player has that passage in their book.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. And there's
Well, I
some
mean,
choose
I
your
guess
own
you'll
adventure
find out
kind
if
of
it's
stuff.
actually
And
cool, right?
yeah, I'll find out if it's cool. But I love the concept. It's 4 heavy, heavy books. Not a lot of games are going to be able to pull this off, but I'm really impressed by it. And everything about it is gorgeous, and every player comes with a character specific bookmark to go in the book and mark where you are in the adventure. And oh, just the components are beautiful. I'm itching to play it.
Yeah, I didn't back it, but mostly I didn't back it because I had Lands of Galzier. I was like,
Mm,
I got the one, I don't need the other. And now I know you have it, so when your kids decide that they will not come, maybe I'll join sometime.
there you go.
Yeah. So my other
How about
one,
you?
I already mentioned it, is Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay. We're playing it tonight. A group of us, we finished all of our Gloomhaven stuff, and then Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, and none of us got Frosthaven. So we jumped into this. Going to play it through. I love this game. Light dungeon crawl, kind of feels a little bit like a Zombicide meets Mice and Mystics, though not with as much story. Just dice chucking fun. It's a great time. I love it. Everyone's enjoying it so far, and we're just gonna play again tonight. I've talked ad nauseum about it, so I'll just leave it there. But Barnacle Bay,
Yep.
excited for the new stuff whenever that gets here in 37 years. So we are in a group chat with Peter Vaughn from Cardboard Alchemy, and we talk a lot about ridiculous board game people, in positive and negative. I will say we do talk about people who are just awesome as well, but positive and negative. And whenever poor Peter, I say poor Peter because it's so stressful running a campaign. He's running a campaign. We always get we always pay attention to, oh, who's complaining, because there's always somebody complaining. It's always a good time. So from that, I promise. So what are our best and worst crowdfunding experiences? Don, you want to go best or worst first?
Well, let's do the positive. Let's talk best. And I've scribbled down a couple here. And the big one is Dwellings of Elder Vale, which is a previous Peter Vaughan campaign. And it was incredibly well run campaign. I've not seen many that go as well as Peter's campaigns do. I think he's just a master at this stuff. So it was an entertaining campaign. He does this thing, and I think Dwellings was the first time he did it, where he puts out puzzles ahead of time to kind of build some hype for the game and some fun for the backers before they're
And you
able to
get
even
free
see the
stuff.
page. And you get free stuff if you've solved a
And
puzzle.
it's
And
not garbage free stuff either. Like
no,
it's good stuff.
no, it's like that thing you would have paid $10 to add on, you now get for free because you did a puzzle.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you think puzzles are dumb and you don't want to do them, you can go to Discord or BGG or Facebook and somebody will tell you the answer, and that's perfectly fair. And he welcomes that.
And by the way, if
So
you don't want
just
to do that, you can pay $10 and get it. Like.
there's that too. Yeah. So there's no losing situation there. You get to choose your own adventure. So just one of the energy around the campaign was a lot of fun, but there's also just a ton of sentimental, attachment to the game. Adrian, my son, and I were play testers for the game. We played it at conventions when Luke Laurie was using, Dungeons and Dragons miniatures in place of the monsters, and they even sent us a prototype to play test at home. And so we did a lot of two-player play testing. We took it to meetups and showed it to people and taught them. And so that was just an exciting experience. It's the first time we'd ever done that, where we had a prototype at home of somebody else's game and play tested it. And so that made it all the more fun. It's one of the few campaigns where I've just stayed engaged all the way through. I back far too many crowdfunding projects, and my usual approach is, give me enough information to make a decision. I back it. I forget about it until I get the UPS or FedEx notice that it's on its way. And sometimes they just show up. I had something show up this week with no notice, and that's fun too.
Yes,
It
yeah,
was
I did
a
too. I did
cartouche.
my vindication late pledge just showed up. And
Right.
well, it was funny. I told someone this. It was so Canadian Kev is here and he's working from home while he's visiting. And I was at school and he sent me a message. Oh, this one game that Theurgy I knew was coming. He said, and you got another Kickstarter. I was like, oh really? I was like, from where? He said, from Kickstarter. I was like, I know, from where? And he sent me a picture of the label, and the return address was Kickstarter fulfillment.
Wow,
Like,
that's a new
which
one for me.
I think it is Orange Nebula must have like a thing where that's what it's their Kickstarter fulfillment like section or whatever. But it
Yeah,
was bizarre. But yeah, it just showed up. I had no idea it was coming. Um,
that's amusing. So
I did not get in
anyway,
on
that
the dwellings campaign, but I have been peripherally in some of Peter's other campaigns, and
mhm,
they're fun campaigns. Like
they
to the
really are.
point to where I would pledge $1 to one of his campaigns just to go play with the because he's constantly innovating nonsense, and sometimes people don't like it. Like we
Mhm.
just did, Mark Dainty and I, we did announced over a game of Andromeda's Edge, and a lot of people really didn't like it. They wanted us to shut up, but it
I
was
thought it
an
was fun.
innovative thing. It
Yeah,
was fun, for
yeah,
people that liked it. But it's always something new, so they're very fun campaigns.
yeah. I was gonna mention another one, Backyard Chickens, you know,
Never heard of it.
involved as one of the designers. Yeah, most people haven't. Uh,
Oh, no one that
so
listens to this.
right. So obviously being involved as one of the designers is fun. It's a little more behind the scenes. It's, something I did with my kids, so that made it great. Uh, the unique thing that I got to do in that was Dan George, the publisher, let me pick the content creators. And so I got to do the connecting with the content creators thing. You of course got a prototype to do a preview on. He was perfectly willing to send one to the UK to get to Matthew Jude and to Australia to get to Thinker Themer
Who?
and, picked a few others. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, Will's joke is that I talk too much about Thinker Themer, and so he
No,
likes to say who?
guys and gals. Don loves Thinker Themer, and you know what? To be fair, that they are great, but
They are
Don
great.
loves Thinker Themer to the point that there was a brief period, like they had a bunch of videos that came out at once, and I swear to God, it was like Don didn't know anybody but Thinker Themer. So now I was like, "Who's that? Never heard of them."
Yeah, yeah. So that's the joke. Anyway, so sent, all the way to Australia, a copy of our little game, and they were kind enough to do a preview. And I went to Our Family Plays Games, and other folks, and so it was a lot of fun just to do that communication. And I've heard enough, you know, bad stories from both you and Peter about the wrong way to do that interaction. So I felt like I had a good approach. I didn't go to people that I'd never heard of and say, "Hey, I love your channel." And it turns out they're covering pottery or something, and I'm sending them the board game. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. That was a fun campaign. It was a great experience. It was great to be in the comments as a collaborator, and we did not have any cranky backers. It was a small enough campaign that we didn't have any cranky backers, and it was a smooth campaign. It delivered quickly. So that's mine.
Yeah, and so, I will just on the side, it is a very different experience when you're a collaborator. I was a
Mhm.
collaborator on the Lunar Rush campaign, and it's just the things that you get notices about. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah,
I don't want to. Like, no, don't tell me somebody liked the update from 3 months ago. I don't need to know that because they always stress out.
yeah,
But I'll say so.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, the one downside to that was I saw every time somebody dropped their pledge. And I'd go to the publisher and say, "Is this normal?" And he's like, "Yeah, it happens all the time. Don't worry about it." Just like it hurt a little bit every time. Not that I'm saying nobody can do that. It's just it
Just
felt
don't do
like
it to Don. He's
just
like,
a
I'm not
touch of
saying don't do it to
rejection, you
somebody
know?
else. Just don't do it to me. So mine, I had a hard time figuring out what I thought my favorite one was, and again, the Flamecraft campaign was a lot of fun. I was just in, just to troll the comments basically. But very fun stuff going on. But
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with Too Many Bones Undertow. And Chip Theory Games is another company that does a really good job of staying active and engaging with the community. And I remember distinctly on Too Many Bones Undertow, there was a story every day. It's just a few paragraphs, a
Mm.
short little bit of a story, continuing story every single day, but it was choose your own adventure. We voted every day. What choice are they going to make? And the story followed that. And what made it pay off was at the end of it, the choices we made wound up in the game. So like we
Ah,
named the wolf of the Duster's wolf, the one of the characters, and some items showed up in the game. I'm still mad that didn't pick the name I wanted for the wolf. I'm still butthurt about that. Snarls is a way better name than Nightshade or whatever for a wolf. I'm just saying.
I agree.
See, right, right. But whatever. But anyhow, it was a great campaign, and I think one of the things that's it's maybe a little bit sad about all of these is the campaigns that we're talking about that we weren't personally involved with, one of the things that makes them more fun is they're successful.
Mhm.
And that's part of it because all those, I think, parts of the unlocking stretch goals, and that's exciting. And you know what? I will fight you if you try to tell me that daily unlocks are better than stretch goals because they're not. I don't care. A daily unlock campaign, I'm like, okay, whatever. I just set it, and it's a crock pot for me. Set it, forget it. I'll go back at the end and see what I got. Like, whatever.
Yep.
I don't care. Um, so that's what I picked as my best. But we know everybody's here for the worst. You
Not
want to go
me.
first? You want me to go first? I know you have a hard time talking about bad experiences.
Yeah, and the this one's not too hard to talk about because I think
It is the
everybody
lowest of low
agrees.
hanging fruit.
Yeah. So I backed Unbroken, which was a rare thing for me because it was a solo only game, but it was not an expensive game. It sounded interesting. It was like a one player dungeon crawl card based game, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
And
that's what it was
and
billed
I
as. Really, it was a resource management game, but that's what it was
yeah,
billed
and
as.
and I even played the print and play like one time through while the campaign was going on. And I usually don't do that, but I was intrigued. And then this is the campaign that famously was screwed up by Golden Bell, which is a
Hmm. Yep.
company that would go around and just find small Kickstarters and say, "Hey, we can take over finishing this project for you, and you just give us this much money," and then would just do the worst job. And this was one that just turned out horribly, and backers were kind of horrible about it. And then, if I recall correctly, Golden Bell was in the comments being at least as horrible back.
Oh, they are terrible, and I just
Yeah.
pulled this up because I still have it. So I made a review of it because I backed
Mhm.
it also very early. I had like 50 subscribers. Not even Don was subscribed, and I covered the game. The game was solid. It was a solid B game, B
Mhm.
plus. And then at the end, I said, okay, but I feel like I have to talk about what's going on because like they were in there just like swearing at people, telling them they're horrible,
Mhm.
threatening to sue people. And so, but I posted my video and I talked about that. And I still have it right here. This is Mark from Golden Bell. Text message.
Mm.
He tried to call me at any time. I was calling to respectfully speak with you prior to our attorneys contacting you. And it's a long thing of how he's threatening to sue me because I posted a video and then by the end of it I said, "So, well, I'm out of town now, so you probably don't want to send those legal documents overnight, like you're saying, like wait till Monday." And it ended up with I was like, "Well, I'll let you know when the lawyer shows up." He's like, "Yeah, there's gonna be a lawyer at your house." I'm like, okay, well, by the way, you know that you're not actually supposed to be contacting me via phone because I gave Backer Kit my phone number, not you. All these. So he threatened
Mm.
to sue a whole bunch of people. Clearly, he never did. It's just a
Sure.
bad experience on him. But here's the coda to this story. I don't know, a year ago from now. And by the way, some people still do not have their copies of Unbroken. By the way, some people still don't have it, and they paid all this extra shipping. So I got a PM on Facebook from the guy. And Star was like, "You have a Cavalier. I have a Cavalier. We should be friends now." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "We had our little run in, but I'm paraphrasing. I might still have it somewhere. But we should, bury the hatchet." And finally, I was like, "Okay, I tell you what. You make a public apology to me and everybody else you threatened to sue and say that you were wrong, and absolutely we can bury the hatchet." He says, "Great, I'll make a joint statement with you." I was like, "No, I didn't do anything wrong." I never threatened to sue you. So I sent him a screenshot. I was like, "This isn't this you?" He's like, "No, somebody used my number."
Oh my.
Yeah, so that was the end of that story. I guess the real end of the story is he went on People's Court and lost. Then he
Yes.
sued People's Court.
I
So
don't
anyway,
understand some people. So that has to have been my worst crowdfunding experience, and I've had a lot of crowdfunding experiences, but 99.9% have been great to fine. Like that's the range. Like there's no bad, there's no unpleasant, except maybe that one.
yeah.
And it was the kind of thing where the game showed up and I just couldn't bring myself to play it, and I feel terrible for the designer. It's
Mhm.
not his fault, but I sold it. I couldn't
Yeah.
play it or
Yeah, I
keep it
played it a
around.
few
So
few times. I covered it, and then I was like, I have a bad vibe, and I sold it to somebody else. Um, and so yeah, the designer. We actually have here one of his other games, a game called Cauldron, which is a very fun little plant growing potion making game. It's very clever. Hopefully he lands. Sometime he lands on his feet. I know he's still trying to get copies of it broken to everybody. And the funny thing about it was on because they kept asking for more shipping, and they did a whole thing where they were trying to pass it off as media mail, which is legal. And people were so pissed they reported them to the postmasters, and like it was a whole thing. Like they wrapped the box in sheet music so it would look like it was sheet music. But on the outside of the box, the tagline for the game was "Make them pay,"
mm,
and they kept asking everybody, "Oh, it was mwah, chef kiss good." So, but what I put down is my worst are just the ones where they're delayed. They're all delayed, always.
yeah,
But they just won't be honest about what's the real expectation. That drives me crazy. Like, oh no, we're 2 months delayed, 2 months later. Yeah, we're 2 months delayed. So I compare it to like Oathsworn. Oathsworn, I don't know, was 18 months late. I don't know. It was late. But after like 5 months after the campaign, they said, you know what? We're not even close like we thought. It's going to be 18 months late. Okay. I got no problem with that. It's just because the others, I keep checking back. It's like, oh, is this going to be shipping? No, it's not. And then, so I have some of them that it was wound up being like 2 years late in like 6-week increments. And that makes me so mad. I did not know it made me mad until I really stopped. And until I really thought about it, that makes me real mad to the point where it says some of the games, like, I don't, nope, don't want them, don't need them. Someone else can have them, you know. But that's the worst for me. I can't. Like, just tell me what's up. Like, I don't care. If you're not done, you're not done. Great. Just
you know,
yeah, tell me when you're
when
done.
you do that, don't tell me your life story. Just give me the facts, and that's enough. Like, I feel for the people who feel like they have to explain all the ills in their life to back up the fact that something is delayed. It's delayed. It's fine. It happens to every project, but I've read a few lately where it's a little too much information, and it wasn't necessary.
You feel like now you're part of the family, Don.
Yeah, and I think it's the fault of cranky backers who are just like, I insist that you explain to me why I don't have this in my hands right now, and it's a little their fault that people are feeling like they have to tell their life story in order to satisfy those handful of cranky folks
Yeah.
who get very loud when they're disappointed. So
And they're probably
yeah,
just a $1 backer anyway. We love you, $1 backers. For everybody, drop down in the comments. I'd love to know what your best and worst experiences are. Not necessarily dropping calling out projects for worst experience. We don't want to get into a fight down there, but just the things that made experiences bad or good for you. If a good experience, drop those names in there. Drop links to them if you can late pledge. Like, yeah, everyone cares about that. But let's not.
Absolutely.
We don't want it to turn into a show down there. So this is where last year we'd have a commercial. This year we're not going to have a commercial. I'm just going to say, check out the channel membership. It's great.
Yes. And a main game topic we're gonna cover is the trilogy, so to speak, of games from now Motor City Games. The first game was not published by Motor City Games. That company was formed by the designers in order to publish the second game. The second game is Three Sisters, which is a farming themed game. These are all dice drafting roll and write games. They all share similar DNA, and we thought we'd talk about them kind of all together, and not necessarily rank the three games, which is everybody's first question now that the third one is out.
Oh, we're going to rank
But
them. We're going to rank them.
we'll see. But just kind of talk about how they share similar DNA, where the differences are, kind of what we enjoy about them, maybe things that we like better in one versus the other. But I thought we'd break them down. So the three games are Fleet the Dice game, which came out several years ago. Three Sisters, which is a follow up that came out a couple of years ago, or last year, I think it was delivered. And Motor City is just delivering now. I got my copy a couple weeks ago. So they are all dice drafting games. They all play over 8 or 10 rounds. Fleet is the one that plays over 10 rounds. They have kind of this similar structure of everybody drafts dice and takes action based on those dice. In Three Sisters, we're going to kind of go out of order just to be random, but in Three Sisters, you are rolling dice and taking plant, and they go on a rondelle on a little central board, and you are selecting a die. Based on that die value, you're going to water a section of your garden, and then you're going to take an action based on where that die was placed after the roll. And at the end of it, and you do that until everybody's got a die each round and has taken their action, and then everybody, and this is in all three games, everybody gets to use the last die that's left. In Three Sisters, it's a little different. There are two dice left, and everybody uses the lower of the dice. And again, you get to plant or water the numbered section, and then you take the action where that die is. And it's a fun, little routine. And then at the end of each round, there is a group action. It's raining, and so all of your plants are watered, or you're going to the shed and taking a shed action. Kind of that's where the engine building section is, and a lot of the points are available. Or what is the other action I'm not thinking of? Oh, the market. You,
Yeah.
you go to the market, and based on how many goods you've produced in the game, you get to do something. You get some reward. It's a lot of fun. It's very thematic. It's cool. In Fleet, which was the first game, you are operating a
I don't
fleet
know
of
that I want to
fishing
say
boats.
very thematic.
Well, the actions are connected to the theme.
Okay. Oh, the theory of the actions is very thematic. I got you. I got you.
Yes. Yeah. In Fleet the Dice game, you are operating a commercial fishing fleet, and you are going through two phases of dice drafting. The first phase is called the boat phase. You're drafting a die. It is connected to one of the fishing tracks, and you upgrade that track, and you're either getting better fishing licenses or you're launching boats. And then you go through an income phase where everybody gets coins, and there's a track of coins, and every time you fill in so many, you get a bonus action where you get to do something anywhere on the sheet. Three Sisters has something similar where you're producing goods, and where every time you do so many goods, you get to do a bonus action, which is do something for free. In Fleet, you're doing that. You're doing the income on even numbered rounds. You then go fishing, where you go to all the boats that you've launched and you fill in one fish on that boat, and they're all going to be worth points at the end. And then you do a town phase. So this is a whole other set of dice that correspond to the sections of the town, and you're drafting dice and you're taking actions in those towns. Not going to try to explain all of this exhaustively, but that's the flow of that game. And you do that over 10 rounds total. The third game, Motor City, which is the one that was just delivered, is about making cars, hence the title. So I think thematically, it's as you're in the heyday of Detroit producing muscle cars. Mhm. I don't quite see that precise of a theme when you actually play the game, but you
Well, I mean,
are
when we were playing,
running.
I made
Mhm.
the comment that the game didn't make sense because there were books on the thing, and then Don pointed out that this is back in the day. So they have
Yes,
books, which makes it very thematic.
there you go.
Yeah,
And you did say "vroom vroom" a few times
I did, and there was
while
a
we were
key.
playing it, so there we
Yeah,
go. Yeah. So, in Motor City, it's a similar thing. You're drafting dice, and taking actions. The actions are research, engineering, production, sales. I feel like I'm missing one. But basically, the different parts of a car factory, all the way to selling to the customers.
the driving.
Oh, the test track.
Yeah,
Yes. So test track. So there are die faces that correspond to those, and they are placed on a center board, and there are bonuses where you place them. And when you take the die, you get that bonus, which is a little thing you get to fill in somewhere on your board. And then you take the action of the die, or you can spend some of the money you've collected to upgrade that action. Normally, when you take an action, you fill in the next space on that particular track. If you've upgraded it, you fill in two spaces, or if you've upgraded it twice, you fill in three spaces. So it builds. It's an engine builder about making cars. It even says that on the box somewhere. It's great. Um, so that part, that's all really fun. But then you get to take that die and place it in one of the four spaces on your
there's
sheet to take
more.
another action. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
Um, I should mention, like, all these games are designed by Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle. Motor City, Adam Hill joined the team. So joined us to help design that game. So again, you go through 8 rounds of this. You're upgrading your actions as you go. You are producing money through sales on this one. Every so often, when you produce money, you get some bonus. So this is not bonus actions like in the other two games. It's a specific thing that you get to do. Sometimes it's carrying out an action, sometimes it's upgrading, and so on. There is a little research track that kind of acts like the other ones where you can get free actions. It's much, much shorter than the money or goods track in the other two games, but it has kind of an interesting variant in that there are three, powerful bonuses you can get instead of taking an extra action. You unlock one of those. So that's kind of the flow of that game. It's again a similar flow but different. The test track thing is really interesting. You have to unlock a car before you can take it around the test track, and as you go around the track, you get things, and then you get to go activate other things. All of these games are, I often hear them described as combo tastic. You know, the more you get into the game, the more each action is going to trigger other actions, which are going to trigger other actions. It's firing off all the
firing on all cylinders
sure, we'll go with that.
because it's a car.
Um,
Get it?
I was
Cars have
going for the
cylinders.
emotional chemical reaction thing that you get from getting free stuff in combos. I
Dopamine.
can't think of the word. There you go. Probably that. So that's kind of how all the games work. And what I thought we might do is kind of talk through some of those different characteristics and how we feel about them in each of the games. Anything you want to say before we jump into that?
No, other than because oh nope, themes at the bottom. Themes at the bottom. I'm gonna hold my tongue.
Yes, I told you. I consciously put that last. I meant to say that in the document. So
Yeah.
uh, they all have dice drafting. And this is a core part of the game, and each of them does it a little differently. You've played them each exactly once, right?
Well,
We
no,
played
I
them all
played Three
3 the other day.
Sisters a ton.
Oh, yes, you have. You're right, right.
Yeah, Three Sisters I played a lot,
Uh,
but the others I've only played well 1.5. We played like halfway through around a Fleet the Dice game before people were like, let's play Twilight Inscription instead. Space.
but you have played it a full time, and
Yep.
you played Motor City 1 full time. So comparing those plays, is there how do you feel about the dice drafting across the different games?
I liked the dice drafting in Three Sisters. I think the most.
Mm,
Um, Followed by Motor City, then followed by Fleet. I like the you're not only choosing the number or the symbol, but you're choosing what's under it as well. And how that's always changed. I think that's pretty darn inspired. And as far as between the other two, Motor City and Three Sisters, I think Three Sisters for me is the better of them simply because even though I'm sure the math doesn't work out like this, because the little farmer or tractor's going around, every time you roll the dice, it feels like the way they're dispersed is going to be different, right? I can roll a 6 and that might be on plant and water this time. Next turn, that 6 might be on do the apiary or the fruit. Whereas when I roll on the gray die, the speedometer, it's always going to be on this one spot. And so for me, who loves a little chaos, it feels like it's more replayable, I guess.
And there's a little bit of that random distribution in Motor City because the die is going to go to a place based on whether it's white, gray, or blue, and what action it landed on. And the bonuses you get are different based on that combination of factors. So there's some of that, but it's not, a completely discrete set of things based on where the farmer is in Three Sisters. So yeah, I agree. It's interesting. And you're picking the action when you pick the die based on where the die is sitting in Three Sisters, and that's different from Motor City, where the action is on the die itself,
Yeah.
and
And
you're
I feel like more often, I can only play the Motor City once, but
yep,
more often in Three Sisters, I was specifically saying, you know what, I don't like that number really, but
yep,
I really like that action. And I'm
yep.
going to do something that might hurt me in one way to really help me the other. And I never really did that in Motor City. Like once or twice, I was like, I really need money. So I'm going to take whatever has money on there.
I find I'm picking based on the bonus sometimes in Motor City, as opposed to the action that I wanna do, whereas Three Sisters, I'm always picking based on the action that I wanna do, and the number on the die may or may not benefit me
And I
more than
find it's very easy to manipulate the numbers in Three Sisters. I feel like it was easier to swap the numbers
Mhm.
around than in Motor City. Go, I might be wrong because I'm not an expert on Motor City, but it definitely felt easier to get the compost or the mulch or whatever it is to adjust those numbers.
Yeah, in Motor City, you can't necessarily change the die face. Like, that's the action you've got.
Oh, right,
Y
right, 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 right. That's right. You get
You
what you
can
get
use
and you
it to
don't throw
take
a
that
fit.
action or upgrade that action, yeah.
Yeah,
Or you can, discard it entirely and fill in a box on the research track, but that's usually not the optimal move in,
right.
my 3 or 4 plays of the game. Action choices, so comparing the different actions that are available in the game. So in Fleet, you are either, you know, upgrading one of your fishing boat tracks and launching boats or getting licenses, or if you're in the town phase, you're using different buildings to upgrade or going down the King Crab track, you know, different choices there. In Three Sisters, you're kind of choosing what part of the farm you're going to work on. And to a lesser extent in my mind, choosing which section of your farm you're going to plant or water.
Yeah,
And then, of course, in Motor City, you're picking what part of the factory you want to work in.
yeah.
How do you feel about the choices there?
Yeah, for those, I would actually, I think I'd rank them the Motor City, Fleet, then Three Sisters.
Mm,
And Three Sisters, you're gonna do what you're gonna do, and you pretty much know even before you've rolled. Yeah, I need to water. I need to try to water this area here, and I need to try to get the lawnmower or whatever. And then in Fleet, that one to me feels the most chaos bound because you're just totally at the mercy of what those dice throws are. Um, which I find fun. And there's a way I unlocked a thing early where I could re-roll dice, which is also fun because now I'm making choices. Oh, I don't know. This one looks like it'll make Don mad. I'm going to take this one and roll it. And oh, I didn't get what I needed, which is delightful. And then Don would play me and pretend to be mad about something. It was great. But I like in Motor City how you're taking that die and you're doing that secondary action, and
mhm.
just picking whatever you want, unless the coffee thing's out there, but picking whatever you want. And so it felt like it was in that one the easiest for me to do what I wanted to do. I need to drive. Well, no matter what I take, I'm gonna get to drive some.
Yep.
And so I think that one gets the take for me.
Even if absolutely none of the dice rolled the contestant action, you have it available there on your board.
Yeah.
There is that audit thing with the coffee cup where every round it blocks one of the spaces on your board. But even then, you can spend $4 to remove it. So yeah, I agree. I like that. I think the actions in Fleet are really interesting. The choice between what tracks you're trying to go down as you're choosing a boat die is really interesting. Usually you specialize in one or two and move up a few others. Uh, it makes everybody's abilities really asymmetric by the time you're a good way into the game.
Yeah.
I agree with that ranking.
Yeah.
So each of them has the track that gives you bonus actions, and I thought I'd throw this in for comparison. It's the coin track in Fleet, it's the goods track in Three Sisters, it's the research track in Motor City. Is there one of those that you enjoyed more than the others?
No.
No. Okay.
Nope. It would say it's interesting when you look at when you just look at the boards, you can see the ones where they're expecting you to get a lot because I think it's Fleet that the track for that is
There's a
a
ton of
thousand
spaces.
boxes you can
Yeah.
put, and then
Yeah.
Three Sisters is like 300, and then it's like nine in Motor City.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of a secondary effect thing in Motor City. And it's kind of split between the money track for the sales and then that little research track. But the research track is what gives you bonus actions, uh, just like the other two games. I feel like there's a little more energy to the track and Fleet. Getting the coins, one, you do it more often. Like you're going to get income every round. And if you do the right things, that income's going to get better and better. And so you're gonna have turns where you get your income and you get 2 bonus actions right away, and so there's a lot of combos firing
Okay.
off there. You got
Yeah, I
a
think
lesser version of that in Three Sisters, and then Motor City, it's much more
yeah.
diminished.
Yeah. So I guess I said no, I shouldn't have. Three Sisters and Fleet, where I actually felt like I was getting significant bonus actions. So
Mhm.
I'll give it to those two over Motor City.
Yeah. I think if you look at the sales track as part of the system, you get kind of prescribed bonuses when you go down that track, but it's not quite the same as, "Oh, I get to pick whatever I wanna do." Let's see, what did I have next? Scoring strategies. Looking at the different ways you can score points in these games, is there one where you felt like you have more of a point salad experience versus the others? This is the hardest one to answer, I think.
I feel almost not qualified to answer because I've only played Fleet and
Sure.
Motor City once because I did things and then at the end I was like, "Oh, I got points." Whereas in Three Sisters, I actively knew what I was doing and
Sure.
actively pursuing things. Um, that said, I don't really, even though it is, I don't really feel like Three Sisters is a huge point salad. It's not. There's definitely things that you can do that wind up being wasted actions. But so I guess I'm just gonna say the scoring, the way it works for all of them, like yeah, yeah, I got points. You know,
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I feel like Three Sisters has some interesting, like, you're kind of forced to specialize in Three Sisters. Like, you're working on the apiary, or you're working on the fruits, or you're working on the perennial section,
no
and
one's
those are
working
gonna
on
get
the
you points.
apiary. No one ever works on the apiary.
I have done it a couple of times. I did it in the game we played the other day.
Who won that
Was my
game?
focus. Yeah, I don't remember. So and then everybody's getting points off their plants, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a big driver in your score. Fleet has a lot of choices in it. I feel like if you don't go down the king crab track, which is the one that gives you 5 points and then a multiplier for something else you've done, you're in trouble if you don't go down that track, so you kinda
So
have
you
to.
tell me this now, as the guy who did not put a single thing in the king crab track? Wow.
Yeah, and I still lost that game. So
Not to me.
so
Yeah, let's be clear, everybody. Not to me. He did
oh,
not
there's
lose to
that.
me.
And then Motor City, I played it 3 or 4 times. I agree, I'm probably still not qualified to talk about how great the strategies are. I've enjoyed every play of it, and I think there are interesting strategies, but I think there's still a lot to learn there. Okay, your favorite part, theme.
Okay. So it's hard pressed to think of three themes that I find less interesting. I'm not going to lie. But I am supremely uninterested in making cars. I can
Mhm.
drive a car. I know how to do that. It gets me from here to the place I want to go. If someone else is willing to drive, they're doing it. So that's way at the bottom for me. Now, I don't particularly care much about gardening either, but the whole Three Sisters thing of the three, the beans and the pumpkin and the squash and how they all work together. That is actually interesting to me. So that gets some points. That is just legitimately, I think, is interesting, and how that all kind of works together, and it comes together into play a little bit in the game. Like the way
Mm.
you got to have things on two sides of the whatever to get the whatever, and you got to grow high enough to plant the whatever, and you water the whatever, and then you get whatever points, right? That's why
Should
I
call
do.
it whatever.
Yeah, a better name, guys. Um, so that I do think is interesting. I'm far more interested in the Fleet the Dice game, and that's probably because I used to watch Deadliest Catch so much,
Interesting.
and I'd be like, I would never want to do that, like never, ever, ever. But man, we watched that show all the time, so that takes it from me. But I mean, we got three themes. Like, there's not a single goblin in there. There's no space. There's no dragons. There's no space dragon goblins. So we're the themes are kind of beige.
So yeah, that's a fair perspective. As somebody who co-designed a game about raising chickens in the backyard, I have to appreciate the unique themes. Uh, they're different. It's not goblins and space and all of that. So
But a
I,
space
I
dragon
enjoy side
goblin,
of
though,
that.
you get behind that.
Yes, absolutely.
Peter Vaughn, add to Andromeda's Edge a space dragon goblin faction to go with the space cows, please.
There you go. Absolutely. So I don't know. Do I prefer one over the other? I think I probably have the least connection to Three Sisters. Uh, Graphically, it was also the hardest one for me to connect with. Like, it feels a little less intuitive. Once you know it, it's great. But the first couple of plays, it took some figuring.
Yeah, I remember you
And
mentioned that. I felt that way more so about Motor City. I
Motor
spent more
City
time looking
certainly,
around, like, where's this go? This goes, what does this do?
yeah.
Um,
There's a
well,
lot going on graphically in Motor City. It takes a bit of learning, and some folks have complained about the rule book. I didn't think it was that hard to figure out the rule book, though there were a couple things where we had to assume what the rule was. And I later then checked on BGG and confirmed it because other people asked the question. But yeah, there is a lot going on graphically in Motor City. Thematically, I like the organization and the logic of running a factory. I like that all the different parts are represented there. I also have no interest in making or working on cars, and I'm dying for the day when the car drives for me, without crashing into anything. But and
no,
there's
don't
just
worry,
something
because the
sad.
autopilot turns off right before impact, so that's still your
Oh,
fault.
there you go. So it's
Yeah.
still my fault. Got it. There is something really satisfying about the theme in Fleet, and I don't know why. I have never watched Deadliest Catch, but there's just something about, like, I'm building up this fleet and I'm becoming more successful because I've built up this fleet, and that success makes the fleet even better. And uh, it's a neat theme.
An
It's
entire generation of sea creatures that curse your name every day.
right. So yeah, I'd probably put it about the same. I think Three Sisters, though, for me was probably the one hardest to connect to, but not for any particular reason.
All right. And I know you said we're not going to do this. But we're going to do this. Rank them. Where are they for
Mm,
you? I'll let you think about it. And now I'm going to tell you the one and two are very hard for me,
yeah.
really hard. But I think, and this might change with more plays, but I think I'm going to go Three Sisters, just ever so slightly under it, Fleet, and then Motor City third, which is the opposite of what I said when we played all three of them back to back. But I
Yes,
think
it is.
I can't just let my love of just rolling dice color that. You know what? I actually think I enjoy the Three Sisters game a little bit more. But I did like Fleet. I would definitely play it again.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think second and third is the hard fight for me, and part of that is I love all three of these games. They're all fun. And, you were resisting Motor City because of
Oh
the
my
theme, and you
gosh.
did not like the title. And then 5 minutes into the game, I looked over and you're, like, making really hard decisions, and it meant the world to you, and so you were very engaged. So
I'm mad at you for making me engage in a car game. Ugh.
these are all really engaging games, and there are, the obvious question is, well, if I own one, do I really need another? And I need all 3 of these games. They each have their own unique things going on. They're fun to play. We played all 3 back to back the other day, and that was a blast. I really
Now, if
enjoyed
there's
it, and
only
it
a way to campaign them together,
oh, man, now you've given them ideas.
right? It's great. But
Yeah,
you ran away from your
ranking
2
them.
and 3 answer and
Oh,
your
I'm getting
1.
there. So
Okay.
so so number 1 for me is Fleet. I just enjoy it every time, and I love teaching it to other people. I actually taught it to some coworkers at lunch today. It was a long lunch because it they were all a little brain burned for the first couple of rounds, but
Did you
then
have
they're
fish?
like,
Did you take them
"No,
out for, like, the Red Lobster or something and then play that on the table?
no, that would have been thematic." I
Oh,
can't believe I didn't think of that. But, they were all sitting there saying like, "This is a lot to think about, but I love it." And, Flake's like that. And, once you're into it, you can play it really quickly. Adrian and his boyfriend play it, 2-player games in 25 minutes because
yeah.
they play it so much. I think right now Motor City is second for me and Three Sisters is third, but I do love Three Sisters. And so they may switch places, as I
And just
play
a little
both more.
bonus thing. So we actually got to play Three Sisters with a little mini expansion. And how did you
Oh,
get that
yeah.
done?
It came with Motor City. It came as part of the Motor City campaign. So there's a little rock garden expansion that adds. But one thing I didn't mention, all 3 of these games are 2-sheet roll and write games, which is all the rage these days, right? And the rock garden adds a third little sheet to Three Sisters, which is really fun. And, it's one of those things like whatever number you picked, you can fill in that number on this little sheet. And if you fill in a row or column, you get one of the bonuses on either side. And it was a fun little extra thing to think about. And, I think maybe twice during the game, and some of this is, maybe not very often because I wasn't used to it, but a couple of times I picked a number specifically so I could fill in and finish a row or column.
Yeah, it's clever.
And that was
Little
fun.
evil little marketing that they've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need this to play, but you could have it if you buy our card game.
That's right.
All right. So, can you get these games? I know 20th century, 25th century is distributing. I know
Definitely both
three
Three Sisters and
three
Motor
sisters.
City. I
Yeah, and Motor City. I
don't
don't know
know
about
about
Fleet.
Fleet the Dice game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. So one of the reasons that I delayed as long as I did on doing any content on Three Sisters was I spoke with Chad from 25th Century, and at the time, this summer, he's like, "Well, we're totally sold out of Three Sisters, waiting for a reprint." But I think the reprint's in, it's there. I'm pretty sure you can get that. Motor City's just delivering, so I would assume that they have plenty of others to do.
I'm sure.
And I don't know about Fleet.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I know there was a time when it was out of print. And I don't know the current status of it, but I can't imagine that these 3 games are going away anytime soon.
The best 3 game analysis on this episode. So thank you for that, Don. All right,
Mhm.
Don, you're stuck with this again. Maybe you remembered this time. Before we
Uh,
go, everybody, please make sure you like, subscribe, share, whatever it is you need to do. If you haven't gotten your copy of Backyard Chickens, make sure you order it. There's still some available, and if there's not, Don has 37 cases in his game room. Hit him up; he'll set you up. But Don, before I let you go, what are this episode's words of gaming wisdom?
I'm gonna say be nice to your crowdfunding managers. Since we talked about unpleasant crowdfunding experiences, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of cranky people, and the folks that we see running these campaigns are incredibly patient with them, but it's just gotta wear on them.
I
So
tell you, way more patient than you and I would be, because sometimes we'll get in one of those our chat groups, like something we'll be like, "You should say this," like,
mhm,
no,
no. So, yeah, I just think about the fact that there's a person on the other side of that internet comment you're writing, and, obviously this goes for the entire internet, but start with your crowdfunding campaigns. If you
yeah,
can't do it all the time, be nice in crowdfunding comment sections.
yeah. So there you have it, everybody. Delete that trolling comment that you were making and go back $1 on something so you can say something. There you go. Go back $1 on a campaign just so you can say nice things. How about that?
I love that idea.
Yeah,
Pick
be go
something
be
random.
go aggressively nice.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So, like I said, like, subscribe, share, do all those things. As always, if you found this video useful or you enjoyed it or podcast, uh, like, subscribe, and share. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Can you hear?
I hear you.
That's a shame.
See, I don't know why you want me involved in this.
It's either you or I just talk
Where
to
it's talk to
myself.
myself.
Though with
It's a
that
toss
terrible
up.
sound you have going, I am just talking to myself.
Hang on.
I'm a $1 backer. I want it now.
Are we both wearing the same shirt? Yep. That's gonna look silly. I'll go put something else on.
We don't need to shill for Peter. All right. We're not getting everything he wants.
I'm gonna go put another shirt on. I'll be right back.
Oh my God.
I want it to look like we're in a uniform or something. Podcast isn't big enough just yet.
Not even close.
I was gonna drink iced tea, and I just did not come up with an interesting way to talk about it other than a long story about the tea bags behind it. Anyway,
You just say it's
like I
iced
said,
tea. Move on.
yeah. Again, not interesting.
No one watches this.